Welcome to the Inside Out Money Podcast.
Can't even recognize this place. Too many pieces of our past mistakes.
Hi, I'm Maggie, and I believe real change starts from the inside out. So let's work together to improve our money and our lives from the inside out. We will explore all things money and our relationship with it. Join me each week with a rotating set of co-hosts, friends, and interviews. Let's jump in.
It's time, we going round and round and round and round and round.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I was born ready.
No, I was born ready.
You were born ready. I was born late.
Were we born at the same time, at the ready time?
Yes. For the
late?
sake of this podcast, yes. 9 days.
I think I was late too. I don't think I was 9 days late though. I just remember my mom always told me it was August and it was really hot in Atlanta and she wanted me out of her.
My parents were supposed to go to a Falcons game that day.
Oh, they miss it?
They missed. Well, yeah.
They got a little baby falcon though.
They got a little baby falcon,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, well, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you for making the time to join today, Erica.
Oh, well, you bet, Maggie, because as we know, time is valuable. It is expensive. Nope, it's not expensive. Time is not something we have a lot of, even though there's a set amount of it in each day, yet it seems to just...
I was going to say, I thought you had all the time in the world now that you are recently unemployed. Sorry, not making light of it, but you have all the time, don't you?
Yeah, yet somehow I don't. And
Yeah.
I know you've talked about this in your early retirement. Is like, where does the time go?
Uh-huh.
And the thing I keep asking myself is, how the hell did I do all the things I'm doing now and have a full-time job?
I say that daily. But let's get into like what today's about before we get too far off on this. This is the Inside Out Money Podcast, in case you're like, who are these people that were born ready and whatever. This is a personal finance podcast focused on redefining wealth from the inside out. Every week, I speak with a rotating set of co-hosts about a different financial topic to help you improve your financial mindset and tactics. Today, we have co-host Erica here. We're going to talk about time, the time constraints many people face when trying to manage and improve their finances, and how to make progress when you are feeling time deprived and stressed about money. And what is interesting about this is Erica and I are we were like real life friends before we were on this podcast together, which actually I was going to say was like the case for everybody on the podcast.
Yeah, but we still are real life friends.
Yeah. Now we're podcast friends. I'm just kidding.
Oh, all right.
No, we like grew up together. So I've known Erica for a
Noted.
long time. Just kidding. I've known Erica for a long time, and we have a lot of common friends, like a group of core friends from high school that we like are on group text threads with, and so we're in a lot of the same like conversations and stuff. And so Erica and I, there were two recent things with that friend group that inspired this episode. One was what you were just talking about, Erica, which is you made some comment. We started sending these like videos to each other each week. I didn't make up this name, but it's called Waffle Wednesday. And you like send a video every Wednesday, 2-minute video of like what you've been up to. And they're great. They're sort of coming into like waffle every day of the week because sometimes we miss Wednesdays, but we've been like consistently sending a video every day of the week and I love it. So just a like fun tip for that. If you want to do that with a group of friends, highly recommend it. And in one of your videos, Erica, you said something like you're like really busy since you haven't been working and you're like not even sure what'd you say? It was funny.
I was like, I'm busier than I was before and I don't know with what. Like I just don't know how my days get filled.
Yes. Yeah. So when Erica said that, I was like, I can 100% relate because I try to keep it on the inside, in my like inside voice, because when you're early retired and you don't have a job, it's not helpful to tell everybody with jobs how busy you feel. So, but when Erica said that, I was just like 100% can relate. And I don't always voice that, but like I do say a lot. I'm not really sure how I used to like hold the job I used to have. We'll talk about that. But the other thing that inspired this episode is we were on this text string with some of our like closest friends, and two of our friends brought up a point of view of how they feel And basically we're saying they just feel so time starved, like no time, and stressed about money. And we're not going to name who these people are.
Well, we're not going to name who these people are because that's not relevant. But if you know Boobles and Leggin, then you know that they are very hardworking people with very little time in their lives.
Yeah.
And
if you know our friends' nicknames, that's pretty impressive, right? Like, come at me if you know who Boobles is, you know? I don't even remember how that person got the name Boobles.
I did it.
So yeah, they were talking about how stressed they were, and the time piece really stood out to me because they were giving examples of how, because they were stressed about money, they were trying to like look into like what they were paying for certain things and like insurance and a bunch of other things. And I, of course, was part of those discussions because everyone knows if you want to save money or talk about money, like Maggie will definitely engage in that discussion. So we were talking about like how much money they could save on car insurance and homeowners insurance and some other things, and how I thought they were overpaying and they should get it requoted and all this. But then they were like, but it takes a lot of money to but then they were like, it takes so much time to be able to like get on the phone, speak to a real person, like sit on hold, get quotes. And like they were getting some complex answers back about like escrow and some other things, and they didn't really understand it. And so it was just reminding me, like, we talk about all the things that you should do to improve your finances on these, 100 plus podcast episodes we have. But we rarely talk about how, yes, you need time to do all of those things. And many people are feeling very time constrained.
Yeah, and the time constraint is just for regular things in life, like even just doing the basic day-to-day things that you know you have to get done. And on the back burner, you have these financial things that you know in the long run can help you.
Yeah.
Either by saving money or like growing your money. And when they're already overwhelming, and then you put that into an already overwhelming day, it's the last thing you want to do. And it's to our friends, Boobles and Leggins' point, like when it's already daunting to you, it's just going to be the thing that doesn't get done.
To your point, Erica, when you've just got like all the other things you need to take care of in life, people are just tired and there's not enough hours in the day, and the financial stuff often is at the bottom of the list, but it's especially at the bottom of the list when it's not what you enjoy doing, right?
Yes.
So I enjoy doing it. So I was making the joke of like, people know I'll engage if they start asking me for help on financial stuff. I'm like, I'm all in, I'll come over. I'm ready to roll at any moment. Like I was born ready, I was born for this. But I enjoy doing that. Like I nerd out on it. To other people, it is literally like the last thing they want to do. So they're
me.
You, Boobles, etc. But like you're already time constrained and you don't enjoy doing this. So it's going to feel even worse, and it's going to end up even further at the bottom of your list, and you're going to procrastinate on it more. And so, the reality is, and you just said this a minute ago, Erica, but like ignoring this stuff, it's going to cost you even more over time. It's going to cost you more time and money in the long run, right? Because time is money, right? And so we really want to dig into some very actionable things that you can do to make progress if you are feeling time constrained and like you just don't want to do this stuff too, right? We got like solutions for everybody, I'd say.
I'll say, speaking for myself, because I can definitely relate to Maggie's and my friends and how they feel in this, which is why I'm like, hey, if you guys want to talk to me, I'm also happy to talk because I hate this stuff. Maggie loves it, so she's going to engage anytime you bring it up. But if you want to talk to someone who had to overcome the just mental block that you put there, which is once you clear the mental block, the physical block will kind of shy away as well, because you just need to get past like not wanting to do it. And so for me, that's a lot of it. And I created little micro victories for myself. Like just today I had to, like, right after I was reviewing the show notes, I went and had to, stop my investments for my HSA at my job because I don't have it anymore. And so I was like, this is the moment to do it. It was very small and easy to do. It took I had to make sure I could log in. That was its first micro victory. But once I got in there and did it, it was like, wow, that was like a lot quicker than I thought it was. and it took 10 minutes, and that's just a small micro victory.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me started. I need to either renegotiate my internet plan or switch. That's a more daunting one. But once you have that small victory, micro victory under your belt, it's a little more encouraging to do the next thing.
Yeah, you build momentum.
You build momentum. You're like, that wasn't as challenging. Or even if it was challenging, you're like, I did it. And this is where the mindset comes in, and wanting to learn how to do these things and take your time when you don't have the time. That's what we'll get into. But let's just get into it. We're rambling as we do.
We're going to finish this out with some very actionable strategies. But before we do that, I think the first piece that is important is just acknowledging that the lack of time is a real thing. So like acknowledging the overwhelm, acknowledging it and recognizing that feeling is important, right? Erica and I just talked earlier about how, I'm early retired 3 years in. You've been out of work for a few weeks now, and you're already feeling what I've been feeling for the past 3 years, which is even when I got rid of like the biggest thing that took up all my time, which was my job, I all of a sudden still got to the point where I was like, I don't feel like I have enough time to do the stuff that I want to do. And that is Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So an example of this, my example is, I was grinding away at a demanding job, easily working like 50 to 60 hours a week, plus juggling kids, family life, just house life, everything. Then I early retired, thinking I'd have all the time in the world. And yes, I have less stress in my life, but even with significantly fewer like must-dos on my plate, I often feel just as busy between like stuff with my kids, working out, cleaning my house, helping my mom, taking my mom to appointments, doing this podcast, and just a bunch of other things, like playing pickleball with my friends. There's all sorts of stuff. They're, my new priorities. I feel really busy. So this is Parkinson's law. It's work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So it's not necessarily that like I'm less efficient now or that you're less efficient now, Erica, though I do think I am less efficient. It's more that the absence of like an intense external pressure gives me the time to kind of like breathe and expand. And without those tight deadlines set by work, things just take longer and I fill them in with other things. So like the nature of busyness has changed dramatically for me from like these big stake deadlines to more like self-directed activities. The feeling of being busy is still around. And so to me, this is just a reminder that time is like a fascinating thing, right? And it is an elastic resource. And so without consciously setting some level of boundaries and prioritization, which we'll talk about, even a lighter workload can expand to fill all the available space I have, leaving me feel just as pressed for time as I felt back in my old job, right? And I think that's just something to keep in mind as we talk about this is everybody faces time pressure with very, very different circumstances and different demands on their life. And there are all these different tools to manage this stuff more effectively, which we'll get into. But it's just, again, I think like I've experienced this shift from a, very stressful, demanding thing to early retirement. And it is like Parkinson's law coming to life.
Like a big point that came out of our discussion with our friends and between us is that it's hard to have time and money. And you had said that your mom said this to you about herself when she was younger. And I can definitely, that resonates with me because when I was in my 20s, I had tons of time minus working, but like, it wasn't a career, but I had tons of time, but I had no money. Now I have money, more money than I did. And just no time. But that's the cycle of life. And so you have to figure out like, how do you, we've talked about like the time money trade-off.
Yeah.
And so what do you want to spend your money or your time on? And you need to have the time to save yourself money, which is its own sort of paradox. But so it feels really daunting because sometimes you have like none of the above. Sometimes you have all of the above or one of the above. It's no matter what you have, there is a trade-off there and you need to create a small amount of time. Just carve out little pockets of time to focus on your finances and your money. And then it gets a little bit easier over time. And then you get your time back, if that makes sense.
There's a funny like old SNL skit where I don't remember all of it, but like the guy's like seeing a therapist about some issue and the therapist is like, well, just stop it. Like, just stop it. Just stop doing, the thing. And he's like, yeah, no, that's my problem. I can't. He's like, well, just stop it. Like, he's not saying, and so I always think that around like stuff like money and time is like, well, just stop spending money you don't have. Just make the time, you know? So it's like easier said than done, and we'll get into that. But that's why investing, I think part of getting to actually make some changes in your life is a mindset around why this matters and why you need to put time against this, right? And so one of the number one reasons of why this matters and why you should feel motivated to create the time, like you said, Erica, is there's a huge cost to inaction, right? Like not reviewing this stuff and not like it takes time to track your expenses, to load stuff into the Monarch app, which we really like. But however you track your expenses, like it takes time to do it. It takes time to review your spending. It takes time to, you know, double check that you're not mischarged for stuff on your credit card statement. It takes time to negotiate bills and get new pricing on your internet service. And it's like not enjoyable time. But there's a huge cost to inaction, right? Like not doing this stuff and continuing to put it off literally can cost you hundreds, if not thousands of wasted dollars. And then years of that happening, right? So, you know, you're spending 10 years paying thousands more than you should a year on your homeowner's insurance. That's $20,000, $30,000 that could be your emergency fund. And then it could have been earning compound interest and, you know, everything else. And so delaying this progress and not putting the time against it has a huge cost. And realizing this and accepting this can be one of the biggest things to motivate you to make the time. And again, I know we keep teasing, we're going to give some very specific things in a moment, but you know, ignoring your finances is like ignoring some like weird noise your car is making, right? And just being like, oh, it'll probably go away on its own. But chances are it's just going to get like louder and like your engine's going to fall out on the side of the road. And it's like much more expensive and difficult than if you had just dealt with it when it was making a small noise in the beginning.
Yeah. Or like going to a doctor when you notice something happening in your body. It's the same thing where it's like, just acknowledge it while it's happening.
Yeah.
When it's present in your mind. And
Yeah. And think of this as just like the doctor thing, think of this as an investment in your own self-care, right? Like this is important to you. Like it doesn't feel good to be stressed about money. You putting the time and taking the discipline and the prioritization it's going to take to put time against working on your finances and working on some of your financial goals is going to help you achieve all of your financial goals faster. It's going to help you build an emergency fund. It's going to help you do the stuff you know you should do. And it's going to remove some of that stress.
Yeah, Maggie, I really like what you just said about how this is, by improving your finances, is an investment in your self-care. Because I think self-care is seen as like, oh, it's a spa day, it's going to yoga. It is that. And it's also taking care of yourself in the way that you need to be taken care of. And that is getting your finances in a place where you are stable, can work towards that independence. You're not stressed about it. Stress greatly impacts your own, you know, self-care situation. So all of this really is like building towards the better version of you that you see yourself, that you're growing towards.
Yeah. If you are stressed about money, working on your finances and putting time against it is self-care. If you're not stressed about money, then that might not be how you practice self-care, right? It's how I practice self-care, whether I am or am not stressed about money. But
I know, it's so weird to me, but yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so let's shift to the actionable strategies. And you already talked about the first one, Erica. You gave an example, like one of the best things you can do when you're feeling time constrained, but you want to improve your finances is break things down into smaller increments. And you already talked about this, Erica, of like the micro tasks. Is that what you called it?
I call them micro victories. Like,
yay,
victories. I was able to log into my account. Yay, success, log out.
The victory was the outcome, right? The task you did of like, even just finding your login. Like I know you sometimes joke about that, but it's a real thing.
It's stored in Kenny logins and yes.
Listen to our security episode for where Erica stores her passwords. Yeah, the idea of the idea of breaking down your task into smaller increments, and like you could call it little financial blitzes or putting time limits on things, but like an effective way to work against Parkinson's law, which is what we talked about, is to give yourself finite amounts of time. Like if you give yourself a whole weekend to research new car insurance quotes, you'll spend the entire weekend or a big chunk of it kind of on that task, thinking about it, procrastinating, doing pieces, like overcomplicating it. You're going to overthink it. You're going to get distracted by other things. You're going to like stretch out the process. If you allocate an hour one day over a lunch break, you're going to be forced to be more efficient in your approach to it and like get straight to the point. Be like, you know what? I'm not going to call 20 companies. I'm going to call 3 companies that my friend recommended. And I'm going to start with the one that I think is the best. And if it sounds a lot better, that's going to be it. That's who I'm going to use. Or I'm going to use one of the aggregators and I'm going to see what where they kind of point me, and then I'm going to call that company. But the idea of limiting the time you spend on things actually will compel you to be more productive. So just like work expands to fill the allotted time, financial tasks can easily balloon if you don't set some clear boundaries, right? So very consciously carving out these like small, dedicated chunks of time and breaking down these big, daunting things of like, I need to spend less money. That's big, right? That's not like specific, and that's going to feel overwhelming and daunting versus saying, I'm going to start with my homeowner's insurance.
One thing I like to do when I need to do things like this that feel like some sort of work or something I don't want to do is I take my laptop and I sit in front of the TV and watch mindless TV or baseball, which is not mindless. Best sport ever. But I sit, watch your mouth.
No, I was agreeing. I
could tell. Yeah. But no, I have my setup in my office, and that's where I have this mindset of like, oh, this is going to be work. But if I sit in front of the TV where I'm kind of like doing it, half focused, but still doing it, it feels a little less overwhelming. It's like I'm multitasking. I'm also getting to watch some baseball or some, whatever else is going on, or listening to music, just shifting where you do it, not sitting in a place where you're like, this is where I have to do this is where I do my taxes. Yeah. Like having a change of scenery while doing something you don't want to do. Take yourself out on a coffee date to sit and do these things.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually kind of like we did that Herkel Durkel episode, Erica, and we talked about little tasks. So that was episode 101, 8 things you can do to improve your finances while you're essentially like in bed Herkel Durkling. You're going to need to go listen if you want to know what Herkel Durkling is. But yes, I think, you know what works for you. And I think that's a great idea of like, if sitting in front of the TV and like knocking out certain tasks some of those tasks are like low thought, like reviewing finances and just kind of like reviewing your expenses and catching where someone charged you for something, or like updating, what you spent, what you bought from Amazon and categorizing it in Monarch. Like, yeah, I can do that while I watch TV. And yes, that makes it more enjoyable. And so I think the idea is though, think about small actions as one of the things that can help you find more time for improving your finances, and like make a micro to-do list. So write down the little steps of like, I need to find my, IRA login. And then I need to find my, if I've put money into my IRA yet this year, I need to, check one insurance quote this week. I'm going to review one bill over lunch every day this week, right? Like however you want to do it, but break it down into these small, more manageable tasks and micro tasks. And then as you make progress on those, it's going to feel like you're going to feel more motivated, because it's like compound interest, right? Like once you make a little bit of progress, you're going to feel more motivated to do a little bit more. And then you're going to realize you actually might get a little, even though you don't enjoy it, you might get a little dopamine hit from that progress. And then you're going to like do one more thing. And it's like compounding and compounding. It's like compounding motivation.
And you might even get that dopamine hit just from crossing off the thing on that micro to-do list. And if you're like our friend Legan, you go to town scribbling out the thing that you just crossed off. Mm-hmm. That's for you, Legan. And so it all kind of leads to just feeling a little less daunting, a little less overwhelming, to feel like you can do these things and you will do these things. Like you will get to where you look back and you're like, wow, it really wasn't as overwhelming as I thought. It was just sitting down, creating the time to do it.
Yeah.
That's speaking from experience. So another thing you can do, because a lot of these rates get renegotiated or negotiated annually, or they'll just get bumped up. And it's kind of up to you to pay attention to when the prices adjust or the rates adjust. So what I do is I negotiate / renegotiate my internet bill annually, except Comcast got clever and they've rerouted their customer service line to local ones and then cut you off. So I used to be able to speak to a real live person. That's not the case anymore. So out of spite, which is how I operate, I might be switching providers. But it's up to you to look into doing this. So every year I would set a reminder when I knew that rate was going to go up, call Comcast at this time. And setting that reminder is a small actionable item. Doing the actual negotiating or renegotiating is a little more daunting. But once you've done it, it becomes a little less, it feels like a little game, like, ooh, I'm going to get you guys. Like, you're not going to get me. I'm going to get you first.
Yeah. Another tip is to really focus on prioritizing. So, when you're feeling like you don't have time to do stuff, that's when, I love the term like big rocks, little rocks, or big rocks, small stones, whatever. But like identify the big rocks and the things that will have the biggest impact first. So like homeowner's insurance, you could save a lot more potentially than like your cell phone bill. So, your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance, your high interest debt. And also just thinking about, so there's like prioritizing your biggest bills first, but there's also just the idea of reminding yourself that you've got to prioritize the urgent versus the important. And that's like the whole Eisenhower matrix, which is like a whole thing I won't get too far into, but I always loved the idea of the urgent versus the important. So like there's a lot of urgent things. Like urgency is like, you need to do laundry. Your kids need clean clothes for soccer practice tomorrow, like whatever. But the important stuff is your finances, right? So we get caught up day to day on all these little like things that feel urgent. And that's how we are at work all the time too. But sometimes like you got to step back and do like annual planning and do things that are important, but they're not the urgent task. And so I think that is incredibly important in your mindset of remembering that like, this is the important stuff and you need to prioritize it, right? So like start to make some lists, write this stuff down, start to prioritize and rank the things that you want to get done around your finances.
So another thing to prioritize is boundaries and just the art of saying no, which I think a lot of us have really lost that. Saying no to spending money on things you really don't want to spend money on, saying no to things you don't want to do with your time that you don't want to spend your time on. Think of it in terms of how would this time be better spent without spending money?
Yes, when for every person that says they don't have time to put against improving their finances and renegotiating bills and calling all these companies and all this stuff, I guarantee you there are other things they're saying yes to, which is why the art of saying no and setting boundaries is so important. Like you've got to prioritize the time on this versus some other things that you were saying yes to in your life. And sometimes that's a trade-off of something you might really enjoy doing, right? It might be watching TV. It might be a lot of things. But like, again, the cost of inaction is high enough that you really want to just remind yourself that like, you got to say yes to putting the time against improving your finances, which means you're going to have to say no to some other things and set some boundaries around some other things until you get your finances in order. And then you can, readjust your boundaries around other things.
Yeah. So another thing you can do is automate where you can. Set up automatic savings, regularly transfer a fixed amount to your savings or investment accounts. It's really great for investments. It's that out of sight, out of mind. That takes no time. Once you do it, it's already happening.
Yeah, it's like set it and forget it.
Yeah. And you can do that with bill payments too. And then you avoid late fees and you streamline your monthly obligations.
Yeah. Every time someone tells me they like forgot to pay a credit card bill or something, or I'm always like, I don't know, all my stuff's on auto pay, and you get reminders and you can set up, you can set up your own notifications. And anyways, I am a big fan of automating bill payments where you can and definitely savings where you can also. Okay, another trick when you are time starved is to batch similar tasks where you can. So even though we talked about microtasks, and this is like know yourself situation, we talked about microtasking. Sometimes you really need to like dig in and do a bunch of financial stuff all together. So it might be that you want to block, once a week or once a month time with yourself and or time with your partner and really focus on batching financial related stuff to improve your finances. And so this can reduce the mental switching costs and really like improve your efficiency and effectiveness at doing this. And again, it can be at odds with the microtask thing. So like figure out what works for you and how your brain works. And I do a little bit of both personally. And you can also like, again, if this helps you, you can batch and organize things by theme. So one month you can say, I'm really going to like get a hold of all my insurance this month. And then next month, I'm going to focus on utility bills. And you kind of like work your way through how you're going to batch and theme what you focus on.
Yeah. And once you've done that, a really great option to help you find time is to outsource it or find help where you need it. I'm sure you've got a friend like Maggie, me, halfway there, who's willing to help you with your finances. Or like we said, text your friends, ask them like what they found that helps them with their finances. A lot of people actually really want to help you in this. It's just that it's such a taboo topic, and they help you cut through half the research you might be doing, or tell you like, here's how you call and negotiate this bill with this person. And that's a real-time saving effort right there.
Yeah. I mean, when Boobles told me that her like mortgage was going up by so much, I very quickly was like, what are you paying for taxes and what are you paying for insurance? And we live in like the same city and neighborhood. And so it was very quick for me to be like, that's too much. Like that's more than you should be paying. So that took 1 second. She didn't have to do research. She asked one person. So just ask a friend that lives near you, like, what are you paying for that thing? Right. But like ask for help. We did an episode on how to use AI to improve your finances in life. Greg and I did it. It was episode 98. And then, oh my gosh, my mother, who is, I don't know, 70 something in her late 70s, yesterday was telling me about how last week when I was out of town, my brother Alex was helping her with her car and he took it to a shop and her car's like really old. And it was the shop, it was like he took it in for an oil change and just to check it out. The shop gave him like $8,000 worth of stuff that they recommended be done. And the car's worth about $4,000 to $5,000. So I was immediately like, no. And so then my brother, who I love, and he's also into like stuff like this with me, he puts it into ChatGPT, the full car bill, and gives context of like, this is my older mom's car. She's not going on like long road trips. She's just driving around town, like literally a few miles a week. And here's the year of the car and blah, blah, blah. And like what's important for like safety and, whatever. And they came back and broke down every single thing and was like, this doesn't need to be done. It's not a safety issue. It's a, blah, blah, blah. And came back with like a very specific recommendation of like 20% of the items.
Oh, wow.
Or less than that, maybe 10%. Like it was like $800 in the end. And it was such a helpful use. It like saved a massive amount of time. So my point is like, you don't need to know all this stuff yourself. Like get help from other people. AI is one of the things that is free and that you have access to. It's free and it's fast and it can save you a lot of time. Talk to your friends, like we said. Go Google stuff. Listen to different podcast episodes, right? Like go search up. My kids like to say search up, go like search it up on the internet. But like, we have an episode just dedicated to how to save money on your cell phone, right? And so there's so much stuff where you can go and get outside help. I did a whole, like on Valentine's Day, I did a like financial love letter, which was like a little bit of a motivational pep talk. So like go listen to something like that if you need some motivation to, put the time against this stuff. But there's so many free and sometimes paid places where you can get help on this stuff if you don't have the time or need to save time and just don't know where to get started. Yeah.
So Maggie, that comes around to what your mindset is. Like it's not going to be easy and it's not supposed to be. It's going to be hard and it takes discipline. I would say in terms of mindset, don't do it if you're not wanting to do it in that moment. Find the moment where the mindset feels right. You feel up for the challenge. You want to tackle this. That is a huge part of the mindset. Otherwise, you're just going to drag yourself down in doing this, and it's going to seem worse because you're making it worse because you don't want to do it. So switch your mindset. Do it when you know you've got some time, when you set aside that time like we've talked about. And it might take you skipping out on a TV show one night or doing it while you're watching. Just watch something mindless.
Yeah. Yes, you might have to skip a TV show one night. And again, some people don't even have time to watch TV, so I get it. I'm just using that as an example. But some of the people who I know who are stressed for time, I know they still watch TV. So yes, it's annoying, but like you're going to have to skip something that you're going to have to make a trade-off at times to put the time against it. You're not going to magically just get more time. You will have to stop doing something else in order to put time against your finances often. And so you're going to have to figure out what that is. But often that is going to be a short-term trade-off and a short-term thing that kind of feels worse. But fixing your finances is going to give you like long-term good feelings, right? So So it's a trade-off that I think people should be willing to make. But to your point, they've got to get their mind wrapped around it, and they've got to want it, right? They can't be like, I mean, you can kind of be begrudgingly doing it, but you got to want it. And I think the final point is you got to be like kind to yourself, right? You're going to make some progress. You're going to have some setbacks. You're going to feel motivated some days and weeks, and some you won't. Like, that's okay. That is normal. Celebrate your small wins. Try to stay motivated. I always like to remind people, you know, like in life in general, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I hope this helps people, but like most people struggle with this. Like, take comfort in that. Like, it's not supposed to be easy. Most people do not enjoy talking about or working on their finances. Most people don't enjoy calling up an insurance company and like getting a new quote. Like, that's not, you're in the majority if you don't like this. And I think you should take some comfort in that and know, but also you got to do it, right? And like, you're better off when you do this. And like, you got to make the time for this. It is important. It's not always urgent, but it is important and it matters. And the earlier you do it in life, the better. There's a huge cost to inaction. One of my friends realized they had been on a variable rate on the gas on our gas plan, which costs you like 2 to 3 times as much as the fixed rate. And it's free to you just enroll in the fixed rate. But the companies want people to let that lapse and accidentally end up on a variable rate. And they realized they had been on it for like 10 years, that they had forgotten about it.
Yeah, that's my thing with this is like the companies, we've talked about this in episodes, companies make this deliberately unnecessarily difficult. And so by us taking the time to negotiate on behalf of ourselves, we're kind of just proving them wrong, sticking it to the man, if you will. But it feels good to have that victory, like you weren't taken advantage of. And that's the part I really like out of it. You know, I'm like, yeah. So I think, look, our final challenge to everyone is like, you got to start somewhere, right? Pick one thing that you're going to tackle this week and like go on Instagram and DM it to us and we'll help hold you accountable. But for the sake of time, we'll even wrap this up so you have more time to go focus on proving your finances. We appreciate you guys listening. We know your time is limited. We've just spent a while talking about that. So we appreciate you spending some of it with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we always love it if you want to give us a written review on Apple. We really appreciate it. If you have any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear from you, and you can leave a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370 or hit us up on Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
We're going round and round and round and round and round.